Hey, are you an entrepreneur out there that's really trying to get clear on how to take the next steps in your business? Maybe you've got a great idea, or maybe you've got a great strategy, but you're struggling with what steps to take forward. Do you have a business that maybe you're struggling with creating six figures in it? Maybe your business isn't producing enough income for you to leave your 9 to 5 and be able to do it full time, and that is your dream. Well, you're in luck. I've thought about you because we wanted to provide more value to people that were looking to create their first ever six-figure business. So we released the Six Figure Academy, and the Academy is a 10-week long cohort where you're going to go through every single week specific strategies to help you take your business to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a starting out entrepreneur and you've got an idea, or you may be a serial entrepreneur but have struggled with really finding lasting success in your business. If you'd like to connect with this academy, feel free to join us. Take a look at our website at www.6figacademy.com. That's right, www.6figacademy.com. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. What is going on, my good people? Welcome to yet again another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. This is Justin. I'm your host, and we believe that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Success only happens when you get in the pattern of making the pivots in life. Pivots are synonymous with success. Success does not happen by a one-shot trick. Success is not something that just substantiates itself when you do one thing. But success is all about the micro adjustments that it will take to get the life that you want. It's about doing something, adjusting, doing it again, trying it again, shifting, doing it again, changing, making the pivots. Success is connected so much to the pivot. So that's why we call this podcast the Pivot Mindset Podcast, because I believe when you make those life pivots, when you make the pivots in your mind, when you change your mind, when you make the changes in life, that you get on the track to accomplishing the life that you want and the mindset that you want and building exactly what it is that you want. So let's jump into this. So I had a really good experience. I love reading. For any of you that are listening to this podcast maybe for the first time, reading, I love to do it. It's something that probably I read my first book, like my first, I would say, personal development book in 2014. And ever since then, I've just kind of got bit by the bug and been reading physical books. And then I believe for a while I did Kindle. So I would read, the books on Kindle. I would download the Kindle app on my iPad. And then, boom, the world of audio books was created, right? So then I joined Audible, and I believe I've been a member of Audible for probably, I think since 2016, 2017 or something like that. And so I read often, and I try to set a goal to read one book a week. Apple a day, keep the doctor away. One book a week. I don't know. Got to figure out a good term or a slogan for that one. But in this episode, I want to dive deep into a book that I read this last week, and I'm a part of a book club, and I would love to know, because I've got some thoughts on creating a book club. So I'd love to get some feedback. If any of you think it would be nice to start a book club, or you guys would actually enjoy that or actually participate in that, let me know. So because I joined my first book club. I've always been a pretty avid reader, but I just joined a book club, and it's really great experience. And so it's almost inspired me to want to create my own, because the one that I'm in, it's not one that I created. But a part of the book club, I read a book called It Takes What It Takes, and it's by Trevor Moawad, and kind of the subtitle and the subline is How to Think Neutrally and Gain Control Out of Your Life. How to Think Neutrally and Gain Control Out of Your Life. So this was a phenomenal book. And I say that because it was a very different spin on really your mindset and how to control your mindset and putting intentionality on how you actually think, right? so much of our life and so much of what we create is based on our mind. I believe it's 90 to 95% of the life that we create first substantiates and starts in our minds. Our minds is an incubator, and whatever you feed it will grow. If you feed your mind negativity, you will grow a negative life. If you feed your mind positivity, doesn't mean that you'll create a positive life always, but statistically, you're more likely to create a better life than you would if you thought negatively, right? So there's no perfect correlation on, hey, if you only think positive, you'll only have a positive life. There's no correlation there. So what this book is really taking the middle ground and taking the middle road of that, to not think negatively, not think positively, but thinking in a neutrality, thinking in a neutral state. And after I dove into the book, there was so much about the book that I think I had already known per se. I just didn't have the words, or it wasn't put in a framework like this. So I'm gonna give you some background. So I played college football at Kent State University, and even a little bit before that, I believe, and when you're playing at that level, when you're playing at the collegiate level, it's so much around mindset. It's so much around, what we call building mental toughness. And what mental toughness was an ability to have hell breaking loose all around you, but still be able to think clearly and make proper decisions in tough times. And so how we would train on that is our coaches would make us run, in the middle of the summer, 90 degrees. We all feel like we're getting ready to pass out. Some people vomiting and throwing up and all that kind of stuff. And when everybody is tired, ready to just lay down, get some water, pass out, then the coach would begin to have us be set up in the most complex plays. And I played defense. And so he would make the offense go on shifts and make them do adjustments, which would make us have to shift and adjust and communicate very well. And that began to train our brains how to think under pressure and how to think clearly, not just think, but how to think clearly under pressure, how to think clearly under stress. And so much of our lives, I believe, is based on how clearly we can think under stress. So much of the life that we create, I believe what separates people that are able to consistently have wins in their lives versus people that don't is the people I think that are consistent with wins in their lives. They found a way to have success and stack success no matter the external factors. Doesn't matter kind of whether that's going on outside. It doesn't matter the political climate. Doesn't matter how much money they've got in the bank. It doesn't matter how their relationships are going. They find a way to be neutral and almost compartmentalize and still move forward in essence, going and accomplishing the things they want to accomplish. So for that as a background, I wanted to really put that framework out there because when it comes to neutrality, that more so is what the author was going after, what Trevor was going after when he wrote this book. And so always in this episode, I want to pull from you guys give you guys some really good things that I pulled out of this book. And of course, I'm gonna make a recommendation if you would like to check it out. But one of the things is it's allows neutrality, and neutral thinking allows you to move on from what happens and to move forward. You cannot let emotions impact your biases or your blessings. Often our emotions are the triggers that we use to determine how we move forward in our lives. And if you are led by emotion, you are 9 times out of 10 a very unstable, uncalculated person, right? Because our emotions are just like the weather. They change every single day. And if you make decisions solely based on emotions, your decisions will be hard to calculate, and they'll be hard to, you won't be consistent in those decisions because the input changes, right? The biases change every time, something goes on. So, if you're not doing well at work, if you're not performing well at work, it's going to change how you show up at home, right? So first thing is, one of the things that I, took from it is how important it is to make sure that your emotions are not governing your actions, and that it doesn't matter what emotions you have, that you use those emotions, you understand and you feel those emotions, and it's not that you illegitimize them, but you do not let them be the deciding factor on how you determine and decide to move forward. And so it's super important that you focus only on what's true. And often our emotions are not a good temperature gauge of what is actually true. Our emotions are true to how we feel, but when we talk about truth, like truth in what's actually going on. And the author was a mindset coach and did a lot of mindset performance with a lot of NFL athletes and college athletes and NFL and college programs. And he was noted for his, I believe, most common or most successful client was Russell Wilson that he worked with. And they were business partners and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to give the whole book away, so make sure you read it. But in that, he would talk about how Russell Wilson, and he talked about his Super Bowl turnover when they lost the game and all that kind of stuff. But what it is to be a college quarterback, right? And to make mistakes, but to every single player, every single down, you have to think from a level of neutrality, because you can't get too high, you can't get too low, you can't get so positive that you let those emotions drive your decision making, and you can't get so low that you let those emotions drive your decision making. But you keep this even keel. This is kind of the nature of neutrality, is you keeping this even keel to be clear enough to make decisions based on the biases, right? And like those that neutrality is focused on only what's true. So so the question is, how do you be as neutral as you can with your thinking, right? That's kind of the goal, is to be as neutral as you can in your thinking, because truly you are better than you performed, right? But you know that you just performed like crap. Like that's the whole essence of this, right? Is you're better than you're doing right now, right? You could be at work, or it could be in your business, or it could be at home with your spouse. Like, you're better than this. You know that you're better than the money that's in your bank account right now, but you're not performing well. So that's the truth of it, right? And so but you don't need anything magical. You just have to be reminded that you're already good enough. You just have to be reminded when you've trained and when you've done the work and you put in the time, that you don't have to pull out any rabbits out of a hat, that you just simply have to go back to your standards and your principles, that you are already good enough, that you've already trained on this, that you are already proficient on this, and not be so dictated by the end result and letting your emotions drive that, right? And so he talks about in the book, when you are elite, you need to have a plan for it all. Now this one really blew my mind, because not only you need a game plan for success, but you also need a game plan for failure. Not only do you need a game plan when everything goes well, but you need a game plan to stay in the mental fight when you just fumbled the bag, right? You need a game plan when you just lost the deal. You need a game plan when you got into the argument and now you feel low and bad about yourself. So it's not just about having a game plan about success in your life, but what is your game plan that you have when things aren't going well, right? And not just an external game plan, but what is your mental plan? What is the mental plan that you have, right? And he dives into the book on the illusion of choice. Now, this part really took me for one. He talked about the illusion of choice. The illusion of choice. There is an illusion that you have a choice, that there actually is a choice, right? There is an illusion that there's a choice that you get to make if you want to be successful. The truth is, there is no choice that you make when you want to be successful. Success, and this is the title of the book, is it takes what it takes. It takes what it takes to be successful. There is no choice in determining what you want to do and how you want to move and how you want to get it. If you want something, you know what it takes, and the choice is simply to do that thing. But I think so often we can get so caught up and think that there's many different paths and routes to get the kind of life that we want or get success in an area when there really isn't that many choices. There is this illusion of choice. We think that, hey, I can do X, I can do this 30 different ways and get to the same result, and that's just not the case. Or if that is the case, it's to also be ignorant of the fact that there is a better way or a best way to go about doing it. And so the truth is, there is no choice. the choice, or the truth is that it takes what it takes. And making bad choices is the lifeblood of average. I'll say that again. Making bad choices is the lifeblood of average. Average is substantiated when you make consistent bad choices. Poor choices, poor decision making is what represents and what pours into creating an average life. If you have an average life, if normally because you've had a consistent pattern of making poor and bad decisions, huge. And so if you care about results, there are relatively only a few paths that will get you to where you want to go. There's not 1,000 paths. There's relatively only, if you really care about the results, and this is so important in the coaching world and really in business, because I have people that, they may have read up a book, or they may have watched a YouTube video or something like that, and they're trying to take a bunch of different information and boil it together and to get the success that they want. And what you could do that, right? And you could kind of play the mismatch game and build and kind of try to stack, different habits and different people's ways to building your level of success or whatever that is to you. Or you could take like the step-by-step blueprint and guide from someone that's already had success, and you just do that thing. That's why I believe coaches and consultants and advisors are so important, because what they really do is they collapse the time to success. What a coach, consultant, advisor, what these individuals do is they get you to where you want to go much faster. What could have taken you maybe 18, 24 months could take you 18 or 24 days, right? Or 3 or 4 months or whatever, right? So, but the reason why they're able to collapse time is because they give you the steps that you need to take. You do not have to have all these missteps in trying things to get to where you want to go, but they can intentionally give you the guide and blueprint on how to get exactly what you want. And so that's the same scenario with choices. There is no illusion that there is an illusion of choice, right? Like the life that you want, there's no choices. It takes what it takes. And so it talks about like being defined by your behaviors and not anyone else's opinions on those behaviors. Be defined by your behaviors and not anyone else's opinions on them. How often do we settle and get discouraged by other people's thoughts on our behaviors, or other people's thoughts on what we're doing or how we're showing up? And then that persuades us to move differently. With the conviction that I want to make sure that as you're listening to this episode that you have is what it is to not be defined by other people's opinions about you. Like, you'd be defined about what you feel and think about you. All right. And so the other piece is that we have on estimate 60 to 120,000 thoughts in our brain daily. And so the goal is to control these thoughts in order to properly advise ourselves. And so if you have 60 to 120,000 thoughts, and you think that just thinking positively in the morning is going to set you up for your day, or if you think just starting off with some mantras early in the morning is going to be all you need to go throughout a day and have a fire successful day, that's not the case, right? So the goal is, how do you make sure that you're intentionally, that those 60 to 120,000 thoughts, that you're intentionally making sure that you prioritize that those 60 to 120,000 thoughts will be positive, or that there'll be thoughts that won't be detrimental, that there'll be neutral thinking at minimum, right? And so we have so many thoughts in our head. And there's other statistics out there that about 80%, 80 to 85% I've heard, I've read in different studies, of our thoughts don't actually even like create or actually even like result in anything. So 80+% of our negative thoughts never actually become a reality. But how many of us have spent so much time worrying about the negative, or worrying about what happened, or worrying about how something's going to happen, or how something negative is going to unfold, but then it actually never happens, right? In like anything, just like on your computer, it opens up all these tabs in your mind. And if you have a computer and you've got all these applications running, you got all these tabs open, you've got all these browsers open, what it'll do is it'll slow down your entire computer. So everything that you do slows down. So even though you're trying to do one task, and that one task may not be a heavy lift in and of itself, but because you've got all of these tabs open in the background, it slows down the entire computer, and nothing gets done at the pace and speed and the veracity that you expect and want it to. That's what happens when you have all of these thoughts, and a lot of these thoughts that are weighing you down, that are dividing you from actually moving forward and thinking with this neutrality to really be even keel no matter what's going on, to move forward and control what you can control. All right. And so I would say lastly, the last point that I wanted to talk about in the book is that pressure is the inflection point. So often we can think of pressure as being the sign that we should stop, or pressure or distraction sometimes is the sign that we are maybe doing something wrong, or that we're not headed in the right direction, or that God is telling us to take the off-ramp. But pressure, and I really identify with this, pressure is really the inflection point. It's the inflection point between when we want something, there's usually a process that leads to the attainment. That's the inflection point. So pressure becomes useful, and it puts us in a seeking mode, and we are open to the answers when we experience pressure. So pressure could also be like the byproducts of your need. Like pressure could be the thing that will produce and substantiate what you actually need in that moment, right? I was talking to Ronell, if you're listening to this, of Holla Black podcast, my cousin Ronell, and he said pressure busts pipes, but pressure also builds diamonds, right? And so pressure can be used to bust and destroy things. Or you could leverage and use that pressure to build the thing that you want. And so just because you're experiencing pressure right now, just because you're experiencing maybe even that overwhelmed feeling, don't let that stop you from moving forward. Know that the pressure is just the inflection point, right? It's actually the precursor to anything that we want in life. It's the starting point. So when we finally get pressure is the thing that says, okay, cool, I know I'm headed in the right direction. And I can either identify or call or name this pressure negatively, like it's the sign that as the reason why I should stop, or I can lean into the pressure and say, with this pressure, this now substantiates why I should move forward. And this actually is the sign that I'm headed in the right direction. All right. And so that is my kind of review of It Takes What It Takes by Andrew Moawad. Check this book out if you get it, or by Trevor Moawad. Check the book out if you can. But I want to leave you with the fact of your life is not by accident, in that creating the life that you want you don't just stumble into it, but you do it intentionally. And I believe a part of doing life intentionally means that you have to intentionally be programming your brain to think through the pressures and the challenges and all the things that will come up and boil up to the surface in your life. And so what I want to push you to is being neutral and gaining control of your life, and knowing that if you have success, it's your fault. And if you don't have success, it's equally your fault. All right. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you for checking out another episode of the Pivot Mindset Podcast. Please give this podcast a rating, a review. We love your stars and ratings and commenting and posting about the podcast and how it's affecting you. And remember here that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Peace.